9 of edible estates. This week we're going to go through harvesting and storage.
Cabbage.
No cabbage.
At this stage you probably will have harvested the majority of your vegetables in your bed as you come along, but some of you may have still a few things left. We still have, for example, our potatoes left. We still have some tomato, a little bit of spinach still coming on in bed 1, and then we also have the leeks, the onions and some beetroot over here. And our chives are still going as well. So what we're going to do today is we'll just look at harvesting the potatoes and the beetroot. The potatoes can definitely come up now. They should be big enough. They're starting, as you can see, ours are starting to die away. So yeah, just get stuck in and dig into it. Get the kids out. They really, really love harvesting potatoes. So yeah, go ahead and do that.
Lovely one.
And then with your beetroot or whatever you may have left, pulling it up. You may want to consider leaving your onions and your leeks a little bit longer. Our leeks are still quite small and leeks take a really long time to grow big. So they will be fine over winter if we wanted to leave them over winter. But we'll talk about that more next week as well. We won't harvest them today. And next week we'll also look at what to do with the rest of the plants and with the preparation of the beds for winter. So now we're going to look a little bit closer at storage. So this year obviously we've had a sample of different vegetables in 2 small beds. But as you look forward into growing for yourself, some of you have really caught the bug and probably want to grow more things or think about growing things in larger quantities. Really it's important to start thinking about storage as well and like what we're going to do with those veg, because they all kind of in Ireland tend to come in around the same time, and so it's hard to stay on top of just eating them. We grew our own onions. We grew a year's supply of onions and garlics this year, and we're storing them in different ways so that we'll be able to just keep them in the kitchen. We can hang them up high on the hooks. This great method here of plaiting the garlic and bunching the onions means that they can just be hung up high. They'll store the whole way through the winter and they'll be absolutely fine. We also grew a lot of potatoes this year, a nice one also for most Irish families. And potatoes, quite differently, need to be stored in a dark space, so we'll find a nice dark space to store these crates in after they finish drying out. Freezing is simple and quick, so it's quite safe as well. It's hard to get it wrong. So this would be suitable for certain vegetables if you've grown them in bulk, like carrots or celery, squash, pumpkins, all of these sort of things. And essentially what you do is chop your veg up to the size that you want it in your freezer, and then you're going to put it into, you're going to blanch it before you freeze it. So you'll bring a big pot of water to the boil, have it on a heavy roll, or a heavy rolling boil, and no salt or anything like that. It's not needed, just water. And then put your veg in when it's really, really hot. Boil it on a rolling boil for 1 minute exactly. Strain it and then cool it down really quickly. So you can do that by dumping it into another thing of cold water with ice in it, or running it under a cold tap and making sure that it's all evenly cooled down. And then you're going to put it into whatever way you're going to store it, so whether it be bags or whether you want to put it into Tupperware containers, and then make sure that you label what it is, because you inevitably will forget. So writing down what it is, how much of the weight you have, and the date that you've put it into the freezer as well. These should store well in the freezer for a year, most vegetables will. The second option we're going to look at is preserving and bottling or jarring. So most of us know this from making jams. You might have seen people making jams if you haven't done it yourself, or chutneys, marmalades and different types of pickles. There's a variety of different things. There's so much on this, and we'll be sharing on the Facebook group more different ideas on this over the coming weeks. The important thing with preserving, bottling and with fermenting that we'll talk about now is sterilising your jars and making sure that your jars are properly sealed afterwards. Otherwise they're not going to store, they're not going to keep. So the method that I like to use is boiling the jars, boil them for 20 minutes, and then when you've sealed them, just put them upside down, and then the air should trap, and that'll make it nice and secure. Other people put them into the oven for 20 minutes as well. Either way, making sure that your jars are pre-cleaned and that the lids fit on nice and secure before you even start trying to fill them with anything. We'll just chop them up, mix them in with the different vinegars and salt and sugars, and that's what's going to preserve this. And so the final example we want to share is fermenting.
So this is a really simple sauerkraut recipe. What we do first is chop our cabbage up into nice small manageable chunks. Then we want to put our pieces of cabbage into a jar, pressing them down firmly, trying to get as much in as possible without making it crushed. Maybe two.
Quite common in Eastern European cultures, and in other parts of the world fermenting is much more common than it is here in Ireland.
Up to the top, very top.
It's becoming much more well known. People eating kimchi and sauerkraut and things like that. It's so good for you. There's really good bacteria created in fermenting. That's good for your gut. It's good for your health. And so finally, we just want to leave you with this for this week, to have a think about what it is that you want to grow next year, or what it is that you want to do next year with your beds. So like a really good place to start is to, think about the space that you have. If you just have these two beds going forward, the ones that you got through Edible Estates, or if you have more space in your garden that you could potentially use. So thinking about what kind of space you're going to have to grow, and also thinking about where you'll be able to store all of the things that you produce. A little bit taking from what we did today. Also talking to your family and seeing what they actually like to eat, because as much as we have great intentions about eating more veg, it is better to grow things that you know your family will eat. And so if the kids really liked the strawberries and they really liked the peas, or they really liked the beetroot or whatever it was, just knowing that that's something that would be good for your family to eat. And so next week we're going to talk a little bit more about that. We'll talk about planning your bed for next year. We'll talk about what to do with the beds this year, and some ideas for anybody who wants to grow over winter as well. We'll give you a few tips on that as well. So really look forward to it, and we'll see you then. Take care.